All right, and we are back. Power Hour every Monday. We stopped for a bit. Stuff happens, but we're
We're
back.
on hiatus. We're on hiatus like some of those sitcoms, right?
But we're back. We're back. And today we're going to talk about, and we've talked about this before, right? Why do you need an ISA? Why do you need more systems in place in order to grow your business? And today we're going to talk about how to hire, manage, and train your own ISA. And we're just going to break this into different parts just because it could be a very long topic. And of course, if you have questions, comments, drop them in the comment box below so that we can later take care of them on the next live.
All righty.
How's it going, Gustavo?
Going good, man. Happy to be back here in Power Hour after a little hiatus. We're back, want to add as much value as we can to the community. And absolutely, the topic of hiring, managing, and training your own ISA, it's my bread and butter. And I get asked about this, all the time. When people find out, right, that this is kind of what we do. A few weeks ago, we talked about like the best things an ISA can do for you, like the different aspects of it, like cold prospecting, inbound lead conversion, calling your database. We mentioned a lot of different ways that an ISA can really impact your business. So, if you want to check out, what that was about, check out some videos from a few weeks ago. But now I'm going to assume there's something the ISA can do for you. I'm going to take that as an assumption. The ISA can impact your business, can have a great effect on that. That's great. Well, now what do you do, right? How do you bring the person on, or bring them into your team, train them up, and then manage them for high performance? And that's what we want to talk about. That's what this new series is about, right? So let's start with number one. And this is something that I think people should not take for granted. That's the very beginning of what I talked about. Define what you want them to do, right? Because just because you saw a great video from Gus and Roberto about how an ISA can impact your business, you got to make that real. And whenever we take on a new project or a new client, we have to have like a document that says, okay, what is this person's job, right? And it has to be broader than just a job description. It should be steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through 10, okay? At the very basic level should be a one-page document that describes their daily activities. We should go down to that level of detail. We call this an SOP, right? A statement of process, standard operating procedure. People call it, define it differently, but SOP. Basically, like it should be almost like a checklist format, right? Where a person can go in there and check it out. That's the basic version of it. One pager, bullet points. What do you do when you start? What do you do when you finish up the day? It should start with logging into your systems, checking in for the day. And it should end with sending out your daily report for that day and logging out from everything, right? That's beginning and end. You got to fill in the middle. It's important to do this at least in that bullet point level, because it's important to understand where your ISA fits into your business. And sometimes, Roberto, this is super obvious, right? Hey, my lead generation strategy is cold calling. I need someone to help me do more cold calls during the day. It's as easy as that. Okay, perfect. But even that, we want to break it down. They log into Mojo Dialer and they load up the list that you made them last night, and they hit it with this script. The script, where do they find that script? And if they get a conversion, what should they do with that? And then if they run another list, what's the next thing they do? Okay. Maybe they're doing their follow-up calls next. They're doing new calls for a few hours, doing their scheduled follow-ups, and then they should be done for the day, right? That's typically what a cold caller, a day in the life of a cold caller should look like. All right. So you have to go down to that a little bit more detail than that. And it can be really obvious. Sometimes they have ISAs doing a little bit of different tasks. They're calling the new inbound internet leads, like a lead management scenario. New inbound internet leads, they're following up with the leads from last week, from last month, etc. And then if they've got some time left over, right, they've called all the new leads, they're hitting all their in-progress leads, all their follow-ups, all their callbacks, right, all their next call process. Maybe they're hitting up the uncontacted leads for an hour or two. They got some time left over. They can hit circle prospect. They can do it. Call around your listings. Call around your recent sales, right? Let people know the good news about what happened, right? So they can always fit that in. But it's important to understand what their priority is. Okay, what's the priority? If it's an inbound, more of a lead management role, priority is those new leads. Anytime those leads come in, drop everything and call the lead, right? Drop everything, call the brand new lead. Great. Then go back to whatever you're doing. Perfect. Last priority is circle prospecting. If you have time, do it. If you're running out of time, booking appointments, doing live transfers, and following up with new leads, that's your day, no problem, right? No problem. But the day end and you didn't call that new lead from 3 hours ago, that's a problem. That's not that you're not following the priority. So I think having that level of detail helps a lot because it gives clarity to the owner, to the agent. It gives clarity what is their ISA supposed to do. It gives clarity to the ISA. Whenever my coaches go into work helping with a client and the client comes with either an SOP or something resembling an SOP, they're like, my job just got 10 times easier, right? Because a lot of times we're helping agents think through these things. A lot of what we do initially is just defining the role for them, making it just as specific as possible. What is it they're supposed to do? Because if it's not clear what you're supposed to do, it becomes really hard to know if you're being successful at it or not, right? You got, and I know this kind of sounds kind of silly. Oh, Gus, it's so obvious. It's not as obvious as you think. It's not as obvious as you think. And there's a reason we don't start any campaigns before we define this, right? So if you're bringing on an ISA, take my advice, define this, right? And if you find that it takes longer than you expect, you got to put some work into it. You got to define it because once you have that at least bullet point definition of point A to point B in their day, then you can start figuring out what's the dialer to help you with that, right? What's the data source that helps you with that? Do you need to buy anything else? Do you need to prepare anything else? All of this, we haven't talked about interviews and hiring, and we haven't talked about any of that, right? This happens before, because what you don't want to have happen, Roberto, is you've hired the person, you haven't thought through these things, and you're thinking through it with your ISA there, right? And they're not doing anything because they have to wait for you. You have to wait until you define what you want them to do. You have to wait until you get them the dialer they need to do that thing you want them to do. You might have a CRM ready to go, but if you want them to do circle prospect, they can't because you haven't bought the list yet, right? There's a lot of prerequisites, right, that go into defining what they have to do. And people, I had an ISA spend, I think it was several days or like a week, but doing pretty much nothing, not even training, because if they don't define what they're going to do, how are they going to train on that, right? So just waiting for their team to get it together and figure things out. And that can be really frustrating, right? Because maybe they're making some money, but they're not doing anything. They're not going to make any bonuses, no chance, right? They're just making their hourly wage, and that's not usually what they sign up for. They want more, they want to go above and beyond that. But if you're kind of tying their hands and they don't know what they're supposed to do, it can be kind of frustrating, right? So you want to avoid those kind of situations. And then when you're in a rush, you're not even thinking clearly through some of these problems, and you're much less likely to get the outcome you want if you're rushing through this stuff, right? Not even kind of thinking it through. For some teams, it can be super obvious because they've either had people in the ISA role or they've defined the role really, really well. That's easy, that's great. Most teams have to put some time into this and figure it out. So number one, step number zero, not even step number one, step number zero, define what it is you want your ISA to do, okay? And for us at Power ISA, we find it really helpful to create these two buckets. Cold caller, cold prospector, outbound prospector, that's one bucket of activities, and lead management, which is inbound lead conversion, database calling, all that fun stuff. We have those two buckets. There's more, I mean, there's more nuance to it. There's more detail to it. There is. And sometimes people do a little bit of both. That's true. But it's still helpful, right? All models lie. Some models are useful. It's really useful to define someone as either a cold caller or a lead manager, because when you start hiring and bringing people in, you're going to realize that their personality, their experience, their skill set takes them either to one or the other. They're going to be, all ISAs can do both for sure. They're probably going to be way better at one versus the other. They probably are. It's rare to find someone that can just do it all. It's very rare. They usually do better at one versus the other. They're more comfortable doing one versus the other, or their experience is going to be more geared to one versus the other. Okay, or all three of those things can happen. So it's useful to once you define that set of activities, come to terms with which one of these buckets is the priority for me. Where would I put my most important activities? Is it more of a cold calling, cold prospecting? Is that my priority? Or is it that inbound lead, nurturing, conversion, building rapport? Is that more like a customer experience, customer concierge? Is that more of what I need, right? because usually teams need one versus the other. They usually do. The larger teams that make massive investments in internet lead generation, they probably need a lead manager. That's the biggest bang for their buck, right? Biggest bang for their buck. Smaller teams, solo agents that are prospecting based, they need help prospecting. That's a priority. They might spend a little bit of money on Zillow, a little bit of money on Facebook, a little bit of money there, and their ISA can help with that for sure. But their priority through and through is cold call, right? So it's helpful once you define it to say, okay, which one of these two buckets would it be? Because the next thing you're going to do is you're going to make a job description to advertise it, okay? Advertise it, and you want to be clear, because in the world of call centers, right, there's some big, so you want to hire experienced call center reps, okay? That's people have the advantage of this. Me, Power ISA, I've only recently moved to exclusively hiring people with call center experience. I used to take people off the street and train them from scratch. That's way harder to do, way harder to do, to get someone trained them from scratch and then get them on the phone, right? Much harder to do. It's much easier to get a proven call center rep, experienced, great English, knows the industry, at least at some level, and just teach them real estate. Very different problem space, right? And that's the advantage that these agents have, folks. You don't have to do what I did. You can go straight to the top 10% of the industry, which is in, Mexico, the same in Colombia, same in Mexico, same in other parts. The top of the top are the English speaking call centers. The best job, best salary, best perks, everything, English speaking. And among those bilingual English speaking call centers, the best of the best are in sales, okay? The best, whether it's prospecting or appointment setting, it doesn't matter, but they're in sales. And by the same ring, by that same logic, most people hate sales, okay? They do not want to be in call center jobs that are sales jobs, because most people are not good at sales. That's the kind of the truth of it, right? Most people are not good at sales, and those sales jobs, you have a lot of metrics. You've got a lot. It's like you got to perform. There's much more pressure in the sales call center jobs than in the tech support, customer support role, right? And there's more to it than that, but just that, follow me, go with me here, right? Humor me. If you know more about it, it's more complicated than that. But in general, that's the situation. Most reps, when you put a job posting, is this for sales? And they ask the question in exactly that tone. That's how I read that question. Is this like it pays really well, looks like an amazing opportunity. Is this sales? Because that's usually where the best salaries, bonuses, and opportunities are. They're in sales, right? Because they drive revenue, hence you make more money. And people are like, yeah, but I want to make that kind of money, but I don't want to do sales. Can you get me like that? I don't actually, right? For most people, the answer is not really. Not really. You want to make the big bucks? You got to go into sales. So you want to recruit from those sales people, okay? So follow me. Big call center industry, right? Smaller people, they're doing sales. And among those, so call center industry, English-speaking call center industry, sales, English-speaking call center industry, it's smaller, right? And in that's where you want to target, right? And among those sales reps, you've got the same kind of setup. You've got the cold calling folks, whether that's solar or insurance, or I had someone that did cold calling for like Sirius XM, XM and Sirius and all these different services. They would cold call kind of a targeted list of new car owners that they would cold call them. Hey, congratulations on the new car. Would love to tell you about Sirius, right? So there's all kinds of outbound cold sales that we get in the call center industry. You want those folks. Those are the ones you want to target with this opportunity. And if it's more of an appointment setting lead manager role, you want people that have done inbound leads. That's what you want. That's the target. That's the best of the best for that kind of a role. Okay. So it's really useful to use these buckets. Okay. So, we're pretty much out of time for now, but this is part one. We're not even, we're not on the interview yet. We're not on the training part yet, but this is part one. It's an important one for you. You can't skip this. You can't skip this because guess what's going to happen? You're going to go through 2, 3, 4 ISA hires because you didn't do this, right? It saves a lot of time to put some thought into this process, because if you get the right set of activities, you're going to get the right kind of job description, you're going to be able to advertise it and get the right kind of candidate. And that right kind of candidate is half the battle. Getting the right person in the chair is half of the problem has been solved, right? The other half depends on you. Okay. So that's it for today, Roberto. Let's jump on next week and continue this series with part 2. We're going to get into the candidate generation interview process, candidate selection process.
Yeah, and for sure, if you have questions about whether you think you're ready to hire an ISA, we've covered this topic before, so just drop it in the comments. I'll find we actually upload all our videos to YouTube, so we'll find the link and post them in there. But yeah, part 1 will come in next week. Part 2.
Part 1 is in the books. Oh, one quick thing, quick commercial for the folks watching this. We're recording this at the end of March. We've got an end of the quarter sale. I'll drop a link, in the comments for folks that are watching this live or during the last week of March. Check it out. You might find a great deal there too.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
All right.